Everything someone with dementia does makes sense to them. There was like a woman one time just like running kind of down the hall screaming that there was a fire. People were freaking out, and I saw multiple staff members come up to her and like, we check everything out and we're like, no, there's no fire, everything's fine. But in her mind, there was a fire. And what's the best way to respond to that? To scream and save other people's lives, to make sure that everyone knows that this is serious. I was like, oh my goodness, thank you so much. Let me call 911.
Is There More is the podcast where creators share how their darkest moments became the breakthroughs that changed everything. We're building a space for raw stories, deep connection, and real hope for everyone who's still writing their story. Brought to you by Dialogue Life Skills, the world's scalable solution to the teen and young adult mental health crisis. I'm your host, Megan A. Tully, and I'm listening.
Today I'm sitting down with a speech therapist, a professor, and a dementia educator for a conversation that I really needed. After my mom's diagnosis, I had so many questions. How do we care for somebody we love without losing ourselves in the process? Today's guest helps us understand dementia, caregiving, guilt, and what it really means to meet somebody else inside their reality. Welcome, Adria Thompson. So tell me about what did you do professionally, or did you go to college?
Yeah, so I went to Eastern Kentucky University, which is where I teach now, and this is where I live. And I got my bachelor's and master's degree in communication sciences and disorders, which is the degree for being a speech therapist, which is what I am. And so I worked in long-term care communities, nursing homes, and memory care communities for about 10 years as a speech therapist. So that's my background. And so now I'm back at the university I came from, teaching alongside some of the professors I had, just training up speech therapy students, which is
Look at that.
cool, full circle kind of thing.
Oh yeah, that's awesome. Congratulations on
Thanks.
that. Why did you choose speech therapy?
Yeah, I never was the kind of person that knew what I wanted to do growing up. I had really no idea, and even into the second year of college where you have to declare a major, I was still undeclared and was just having fun.
Yeah.
And I took a career counseling class. My advisor had recommended it, and so it was a lot of aptitude tests and personality tests and things like that. And many of them came back having speech pathology being in the top 5 recommendations for me. And I had to write a paper about one of the careers that were popping up that I didn't know much about. And I chose that one. And I realized that was the same thing as speech therapy. And I had been in speech therapy for 5 years when I was little because I couldn't say my R's and S's. And so
Oh,
I was like, I liked that. I think I could do that. I'm more of a one-on-one kind of person.
yeah.
And so I just was interested in working with kids with disabilities. That's what I wanted to do, even all through grad school. I had no idea I was going to spend my career working with geriatrics, but it's turned out to be the perfect career for me, for sure.
You said you wanted to work with kids, but then you ended up with geriatrics. How did that kind of happen?
So I knew about myself that I like working with the people that no one else did, kind of thing. I was an underdog. I loved rooting for people who people underestimated. And I had some experience when I was in grad school. I had a lot of experience working with kids just through classes, and we have a clinic on campus, and most of who we served were kids.
Mm.
And so I'd never worked with an adult, but I really liked the kids that had never said a word before or who needed a device to communicate. And so that's kind of what drove me towards that population, not necessarily their age, but the challenges that they experienced. And so when I graduated, I was hoping to live in the area where I graduated, but as you can imagine, every year we're churning out 35 speech therapists that are looking for jobs. It was just hard to find a job in this area. And so I just started applying to everywhere that was needing a speech therapist. And I applied to a nursing home. And I thought, I'll just get experience doing an interview and see what it's like to, there's no way I'm going to work there. And then I did the interview, it went well, and they offered the job to me. And it wasn't until they told me how much I could make that I was like, maybe I should consider this because it was like medical speech therapy is just like you make more than working in the schools just because you also
Mm,
just work more because you don't
mm,
have summers off and stuff. And
for
so it was purely financial. I wish I could say it was like this like thing that was like just blooming in my heart for geriatrics. Like, no, I was like, I need to pay off loans and this would be good to do for a while. And it wasn't until I like stepped foot into that role that I really realized it wasn't the age that I liked. It was just people who were underestimated. It was
sure.
people who showed like who demonstrated challenges of getting along with everybody else. And that very much led me to working with people with dementia, as you can imagine.
Is there more to that?
Yeah, I think a lot of people don't realize that speech therapists work with people with dementia. Most of our role, even through school, I learned that we had a huge role in helping people after a stroke who couldn't communicate anymore, right? So everyone's heard of stories of people who've had a stroke and then they can't speak. And they see a speech therapist and we get them back to saying, I love you to their partner again. And like, I always say, like, that's kind of the sexy part of therapy, of speech therapy, is like rehabilitation.
Mm,
Taking someone who's had a traumatic event, medical event, and then getting them back to what they were doing before. And
mm,
whether that be like physical, occupational, or speech therapy, when we think of rehabilitation, like that's what every young person in grad school dreams of doing is like getting people back to the things that they loved. And I found the reality was when you're working in nursing homes, in rural parts of Kentucky, it wasn't necessarily that model. It was people who have chronic diseases who are just getting worse and they're going
mm,
to continue to get worse. And our jobs are just to come in and like try to make things better as much as possible. And
yeah.
so I found myself working with people with all kinds of chronic conditions including dementia, but for people with dementia, it was just like a sadder layer added on top because it was like families didn't understand what was happening. They're not even aware of their own, changes.
Yeah.
And so it threw me for a loop. I had no idea what I was doing. So it
Mm,
wasn't like I just like came in and saw, ooh, people with dementia, like that's what I want to do. And I was really good at it. Certainly not. I mean, I feel like I probably my first like 3 to 5 years was just figuring out like how do I help these people? How do I even communicate with them? How do I interact with them in a way that is beneficial and not just furthering their confusion or making them mad.
so the nursing home you called it, right, that you were
Mhm.
working at didn't have any, I guess, extra training for you for dementia patients, but it wasn't until you pursued it on your own later once you kind of realized, okay, I love this and I also want to learn more.
Yeah, and it's complicated in the world of like rehabilitation therapies because oftentimes you are working for a company that's renting a room inside of a nursing home or inside of an assisted living. So I didn't even work for the company like the company that I was working inside of. Like the nursing home was being run by a company. My therapy company was separate and I just worked there. So most of the time that's the situation. And so when it comes to yeah, the nursing home was probably training their people, didn't train me. I was just hired to do a job and they expected me to know what I was doing. They were a customer, not
Right.
necessarily my employer. So, and that's how it is in a lot of places and a lot of families see that disconnect between like a therapist and the place that they're living and it's like the foundational root behind all of that is that it's usually different companies and
Mm,
there's terrible communication.
oh no, not good.
Yeah. Yeah.
When did you start talking about it online? Because now you're sort of like a dementia influencer.
Yeah, dementia content creator, influencer, all these things I had to learn because it certainly was not anything that I dreamed of doing, in my years working clinically as a speech therapist. So it was 2021 where I actually had to move across country. My husband got a job working for the U.S. Forest Service in Washington State. So we
Oh,
moved from Kentucky to Washington. And I had kind of built a reputation in Kentucky for being kind of like a dementia SLP, like knowing I was training people and other therapists about how to work with people with dementia. And I wanted to continue that work. And when I moved to Washington, I knew no one. I had no reputation. I had no connection. So I was just going to nursing homes being like, can I train your staff? And every time they'd say like, well, yeah, what do you do? And I say, well, I'm a speech therapist. And they're like, well, our people talk just fine. We have
Mm.
social workers, we have nurses that do our trainings. Like I don't know what we would need a speech therapist for. And so it was just kind of like a level of advocacy that needed to happen for our role as speech therapists. And so my solution, I didn't even have a personal Instagram really at the time, but I started seeing all the nurses and aides in the buildings I would work in on their phone, scrolling TikTok and stuff on their breaks. And I thought, well, maybe people would listen to me if I could just jump into their phone. Like if I could just pop up on their phone, maybe they would pay me a little more attention than they are right now. And that really was the idea behind me just starting to make videos about like, here's what I would do in this situation. Here's an experience I had with someone with dementia. Here's what research says. And I thought that it was going to be like a means to an end. That I was going to I could go up to a executive director of a nursing home and be like, here's an example of all the kind of trainings that I do and the education I provide, never knowing or realizing, even considering the fact that people out in the world would find me. And
Mm.
that's what happened pretty quickly.
Wow. How quickly would you say it happened, and how did it make you feel when it did start to happen?
Yeah. So I I started gaining tens of thousands of followers in the first like 3 months. I want to say I started in September. The next summer, around a little under a year later, I had like 100,000 followers, which
Wow.
for anyone who like desires to be an influencer, like that's insane. That
Yeah.
is like absolutely crazy. I had no idea what I was doing. I was just like making videos and people would put in the comments like, "Ooh, that was good. Like make one about brushing your teeth." And then like, "Ooh, can you make one about this?" And I just kind of followed my followers and like what they wanted to know about. And I was working at the same time like in nursing homes, so I was like getting inspired every single day and then coming home and making videos. And yeah, it completely blew up and I realized that my business really took a turn. I thought I started Be Like Care consulting to work with nursing homes, and then it very quickly I realized that I'm going to be much more forward facing to just society, than I ever imagined.
Oh, wow.
I mean, it's 2 full-time jobs, like, lots of work, but it's what I love. I mean, I'm teaching online, I'm teaching in classrooms, like, it works.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
you kinda got all those years of experience, and then you transitioned to full-time content creation, and then you got a job teaching where you studied.
Yeah, yeah,
Sweet. So
yeah.
now you're just pouring all the knowledge back into the community, and that's so
Mhm,
cool. I'm so happy I found you because my mom recently, I think in January of this year, which is 2026, she got diagnosed with first they thought it was Alzheimer's, it ended up being dementia, and we kind of always knew it was coming,
mm,
um, but we didn't realize, like I guess I didn't realize it was, like, gonna be a bigger downhill, like, all of a sudden, like, it was like a
mm,
curve when whatever happens, happens.
mhm,
Um, so it was like I probably saw her last like late summer, like last September, and like everything was like normal. And then the next time I saw her was like March of this year because my sister had started telling me like, "Oh, well, I think, her memory's getting worse." And I was like, "Yeah, that's just her." Like,
mm,
but I went back and I was like, "Oh, yeah.
mhm.
It is." Like,
Yeah,
so anyway, we just got her formal diagnosis. She has vascular dementia, and that's how I found your content was kind of like connecting with other people on Instagram, yeah, because I
yeah,
started posting about her journey, and I started posting. I mean, I don't have a medical background or like psychology, so I have a background in acting and filmmaking,
mm,
and so content creation is like a natural extension of that.
mhm,
But yeah, I didn't plan to like show my mom's journey. I wasn't,
Yeah.
like, planning on that. I just simply got a call where I realized I would have to go home and, like, figure stuff out, and then I was like, "Oh my gosh," like, it was at first it was to cope, right?
Yeah.
I started creating content to cope with the situation, and then when people started seeing it and commenting and just, yeah, giving me advice, sharing with each other stuff, and I was like, "Oh, whoa, like, this is a way bigger, I guess,
Mhm.
problem," or, like, so many people are dealing with this who are, like, my age even, and usually a little bit older, it seems like, but I was like, "Whoa, like, that's crazy," like, how many people, I don't know, just, like, resonate with this, and people started saying, like, "It's so good to see, like, a positive story of, like, somebody online," and I was like, "Oh, that's crazy, I guess I have to keep posting," and then, so I started posting about her in, like, March, and then last month, May, like, a few days ago, I looked at my Instagram and it was like 1,000,000 views in 30 days, and I was like, "What?" And I was like, "Wait, what?" And then also, it was crazy because last month she got her first brand campaign.
So I saw your video about it.
Did you? Okay.
Yeah.
So it was just so funny because I was like, "Mom, are you an influencer? Like, you literally did an unboxing video, like, effortlessly."
She did,
Um,
and had, like you said, like, such little like, these little quips and, like, screen grab, like, just perfect responses.
I know. She was coming up with I asked her later, I was like, "Mom, were you, like, a commercial director back in the day?" I guess I knew it was a problem, but I don't know, I didn't really
Mm,
put it together until
yeah.
seeing everybody in the comments and be like, "Oh, this is, like, a big deal," and nobody knows really what to, like, do about it. We went to, like, a psych, eval, and he said there's, like, 3 things that are the most important, which are exercise being number 1
Mhm,
for, I guess, lowering the progression of it, and
mhm,
then the 2nd and 3rd things he said were tied was, like, diet and then just mental activity, like
mhm.
socialization or I guess maybe, crossword puzzles, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Is that what you've learned, over the years, or do you have additional advice?
Yeah, yeah, no, I agree completely. Research tells us that, these, like, brain health strategies can help protect those of us who don't have dementia yet, but even if you already do, it can, you know, just keep you as independent and as functioning for as long as possible to keep good circulation to the brain, and especially since your mom has vascular dementia, it tells us that there hasn't been good blood flow to her brain for whatever reason in the past. And so exercise can definitely do that. And diet, yeah, is really good. They often recommend the Mind diet, which is like the Mediterranean and DASH diet kind of combined together. But it's all the things that we already hear all the time, like good, healthy, like real foods, whole grains, those kind of things. And as far as the part about mental stimulation, cognitive stimulation, it's important that it's new experiences. So oftentimes I'll hear people, even in my own family, will say, like, well, I've done crossword puzzles for 20 years. I do it every morning. And I'd say, well, it's almost like just doing a bicep curls every single day for your whole life. You'll get really good bicep muscles and you're going to get really good crossword connections in your brain. But if that's the only thing that you do to stimulate your brain, then that's like leaving so much room to be desired, so much more
Yes.
stimulation. So it's kind of just thinking about, um, you know, I often tell people, like, for brain health early on is like take a different route home, a couple times a week. And when you go on a walk, like make sure, like, try navigation has been shown, like to find new places to navigate new spaces.
Okay.
That's helpful. But also just like, dancing, which is stimulation, it's socialization, it's exercise, and trying to find ways to kind of combine all of those things all at once is like gives you the best bang for your buck. But socialization really is super important. When we're conversing with people, we're having to stay on track really well. We're having to listen, we're having to think of how we're going to respond, and so that's um a really good way to stay cognitively stimulated. But all of that, yeah, absolutely is important.
Awesome. What would be, like, 3 pieces of advice you'd give to somebody who's caretaking someone who does have dementia?
Yeah. The thing that I find most important is like a perspective kind of idea, which is that everything someone with dementia does makes sense to them. And I found myself almost saying this like a mantra when I would be working clinically, especially when I was working in memory care. I would come across someone with dementia behaving in a way that seemed so unreasonable to me, right? Like they're talking about something, or they're just really stuck on a certain idea, or they're just behaving in a weird way. And it's very easy to come into that situation and just be like, oh my gosh, this is so unreasonable. This is so silly. This is so crazy. But I would almost start to find myself doing this thought process of what like everything they do makes sense to them. What they're doing makes sense to them. And that really was a game changer for me. I don't even know. I don't think I heard it from anywhere. It was just like, it was what it always came down to, which is there was like a woman one time just like running kind of down the hall screaming that there was a fire. And as you can imagine, that's like textbook, like chaos changing, like chaos causing kind of environment changing situation. So people were freaking out, and I saw multiple staff members come up to her and like, we check everything out and we're like, no, there's no fire. Everything's fine. But in her mind, there was a fire. And so I realized, well, okay, what she's doing makes sense to her. She really does believe there's a fire. And what's the best way to respond to that? To scream and save other people's lives, to make sure that everyone knows that this is serious. And so instead of just trying to be like, no, you're wrong, there's no fire, I was like, oh my goodness, thank you so much. Let me call 911. I went around the corner, waited a few seconds, came back and said, the firemen are here. They've got it out. Like, you saved everybody. Thank you so much. And just immediately, like the relief that just came over her, like was so visible, palpable. She kind of just like sat down on her rollator and was like panting and she truly believed it. And if I could just kind of get in the world that she was in and respond to her beliefs in the way that would make sense to her, it's what's most important. So I believe everything they do makes sense to them, regardless of how crazy it seems to us. Other than that, I think it's really important to never get stuck in the I've tried everything trap. So many times I hear from caregivers when they're experiencing tough situations, well, I've tried everything and nothing works. And that's just like a big red flag to me of like, let's pause a minute and, take a deep breath, because what you're experiencing is hopelessness. And like, that's a really dangerous place to be. So it's really important, I think, to acknowledge the fact that maybe even just the way we talk to ourselves of like, I haven't tried something that works yet. Like I haven't tried the thing that's going to work yet. That's a big mental shift. I think that's important. And I think the other thing is just to be comfortable with guilt. I know that feels kind of crappy, but I think the guilt is always going to be experienced by caregivers, because we're having to make decisions on behalf of another human being who cannot communicate their wants and needs in a way that aligns with their reality. And so there's no decision that's going to be guilt free. And oftentimes I see it in my grandmother has dementia as well, as that's something I haven't mentioned, but I've seen in my own mom, who's her primary caregiver, that she will feel like she's making the wrong decision if she feels guilt. And so we talk a lot about how it's almost like guilt are like the bumpers that you can pull up when you're bowling. And it's like, if you're in the middle for a minute where you're not feeling guilt, this feels like the right thing to do. But then the second you kind of get too close to the bumpers and you feel it, you're like, oh my gosh, I'm so wrong. This is terrible. This is the wrong thing. But guilt's always going to be there. And even if we experience it, that is not an indication of a decision that was wrong. It's just kind of a symptom of being a caregiver, unfortunately.
Wow. If you're new here, hi, my name is Megan. I'm an actor and filmmaker from St. Louis, Missouri, turned content creator and also the host of this podcast. If you guys are liking the show so far, please hit the like button, hit subscribe, leave a comment, leave a review. It all helps the channel out. I'm like so excited you guys are here. This is a topic that is near and dear to my heart. If you guys have seen my Instagram, I've been posting about my mom with dementia. Hi, Mom. I know you're watching this right now because you love to watch all my podcasts. Love you. It's been a journey. It's definitely been a journey. And later you will hear more about my journey with my mom and online. So stick around till the end to hear more about that. And for now, let's get back to the show. Okay, so if I got that, the 3 things that you would suggest would be jump into their reality. Whatever reality they're having is their reality and it's real for them. So don't try to tell them it's not, because it will not work.
Mhm.
The second one is never say, I've tried everything, nothing's working, because
Mhm.
then the caregiver's in a hopeless place, which
Mhm.
is a scary place to be for the caregiver. And that, I guess, creates burnout, right? And then third thing would be you're going to experience guilt no matter what decision you make. So don't let your feelings of guilt make you feel like you did the wrong thing, because it's not always the wrong thing.
Yeah.
Just you feel guilty. Sometimes it's still the right decision, or it's just a decision. It's
Yeah.
you're going to feel guilt either way. Did I get
Yeah.
that?
The presence or absence of guilt is not an indication of a right or wrong decision. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Yeah. I'd say, I mean, I could probably come up with a million more, but I think those are the 3 biggest things I hear from caregivers that are just like the most challenging and
They're
that I
great.
think are important to consider.
Yeah, those are great. And
Mhm.
yeah, man. So your grandma is experiencing dementia. At what age did you start to see that and see your mom be her primary caregiver?
Yeah. So she has had dementia for probably about 8 to 10 years at this point. She has Alzheimer's and vascular dementia. She's now living in a nursing home in my hometown. And she is in the final stages of dementia. And so she was cared for at home for a long time, many years, and then kind of got to the point where she had some medical needs that were not, this just wasn't meant to be, wasn't possible to be met at home. And she had to go to a nursing home for rehabilitation. We made the decision that she would stay there long term. And to be quite honest, I know that just from watching your content that you're kind of in this time of considering care and care communities and things like that. And for my grandmother, she improved significantly when she moved to a nursing home long term. And I say that not necessarily that her dementia was cured or that they reversed her dementia, but her function was better because she was given 3 meals a day, her medication at the exact same time. She was provided so much cognitive stimulation. You think about cognitive stimulation being important. My grandmother, yeah, lived at home and we had caregivers that came in and out of the house, but those are the only humans she saw, and her experiences were limited to her living room, to her bedroom, and no matter how much we came in and rah-rahed and cheered and danced in her living room, she just was isolated. And so going to a care community provided her so much stimulation, opportunities for exercise, therapy, and she really perked up and enjoyed. I mean, she's also a really nosy person, and like even years ago when I was growing up, she would be like, she'd call my mom, and because we all lived on the same street, and it was like, who's in Susan's, like, who's that car in Susan's house down the street? Like, I've never seen that car before. I wonder who's over there. Like she was just like neighborhood watch. She took
You're
it
welcome.
very,
Yeah.
very, seriously. And so being in a nursing home, it was like drama all the time. It was like people and drama and like situations and relationships. And guess what I heard? And so every time she went to an activity, she thought she had gone on vacation. She'd say she went to Gatlinburg, Tennessee,
Wow.
on a trip with the Nifty Fifties, which was the older group from church. And, so it was like the world she lived in opened up significantly. We saw her
Yes.
perk up so much. And so I know that there's a lot of feelings that people have and stigmas around care communities, but that's where I learned everything that I know. That's where my grandmother has been really well cared for. So I'm never going to be the person that you're going to find to say, you better not send your mom to a nursing home, because that's not what's necessary. That's not what's best for every person.
Yeah, definitely. I feel that. And it has been a hard kind of decision to not really hard, but it is a bit of a challenge because some of these places are just so big. Like, not only am we like, she's definitely gonna get lost in here, like, they're gonna send her to memory care, but I'm like, is it better to be in a bigger facility or a I
Mhm.
don't know that answer.
Yeah, I mean, there's not an answer, like, there's not a right answer, of course, every person is different, but, there are a lot of people with dementia who live in assisted living, and, just a normal assisted living. There's, the biggest things that people look for when we start making decisions for memory care is if they are an exit seeking kinda person, where they're gonna be knocking
Okay.
on the doors or, like, trying to get out a lot. My grandmother was, like, perfectly happy to sit in her recliner all day long. Like, she wouldn't
Oh,
even try to, like, leave her room, much less the building. So even into, the most significant parts of her, progression, exit seeking was never gonna be a thing for her. So, it depends on the person, but we look at exit seeking for memory care. We look at also just any kind of, like, aggression perhaps that might need a specialized kind of care,
gosh,
provider. Those are the two biggest considerations, but they do assessments and kind of help you make that determination.
gotcha. Yeah, that's good to know. I started to think about what she said when we were younger. She did say, "Just put me in a nursing home, like, I don't want you girls to have to take care of me." Uh,
Mhm.
and, like, basically just give up your whole life in a sense,
Yeah. It's
which
really important to be able to remember those conversations, because that is really helpful, and that's truly what she wants. Like, that truly is what she wants. And like I said, I think memory, like, care communities in general, there are certainly bad apples. I mean, that there are bad apples in any industry, but certainly they're incredibly, incredibly important tools for so many, and they're the perfect choice for so many.
so true. So your grandma also has vascular dementia and
Mhm,
Alzheimer's too.
mhm.
Does she have any physical injuries or anything?
In her past, many people who have vascular dementia of any kind will have a past history of either having strokes or mini strokes, which we sometimes call like TIAs, transient ischemic attacks. But for some people, there's no indication that they've had any kind of brain situations going on. For my grandmother, though, she had several mini strokes in her past, where there'll be moments where, like, her mouth drops on one side. She doesn't make any sense when she's talking. She can't, like, raise her arm on one whole side of her body. That, looking back, that has happened to her 4 or 5 times over the course of her life. And back in the 80s and 90s, even when that happened, they were just like, well, take it easy. Like, they didn't even go to the hospital to, I mean, there was nothing they could do at the time. So we've learned so much more about the brain, and there's so many more things that can preserve the brain's function and hopefully in the future be able to decrease these episodes of vascular dementia. But yeah, so for some people, there's really obvious signs that there's some blood flow changes in the brain that are happening, but uh, it's kind of complicated to diagnose, and brain scans help a lot with that.
Can it be genetic? Vascular?
So vascular dementia, essentially, it's where there's parts of the brain that does not get blood flow for a certain period of time. This can also happen while people sleep. So even the person doesn't might not even know that it's happened. If they're awake and they're interacting with another person, often the signs are visible. But every time that happens, within 4 minutes of brain tissue not getting blood flow, we start to see permanent damage to the brain tissue. And in a younger, healthy person, that means that for around 24 hours or so, a person's going to have, like, symptoms and signs that they've had, like, stroke like kind of features. So they might have slurred speech, they might have a weakness on one side. Um, but those spots of damage are always going to be there. But what happens is when you're young and healthy, your brain kind of compensates. There's other parts of your brain that's like, oh, like, you have arm weakness on the right side. Well, I'll like these other parts of the brain are like, I can do that. Like I can take over those processes and we don't have to worry about those spots of damage. But
Sure.
when as our brain ages, it shrinks a little bit, it's not functioning as well. All of those spots of damage in the brain can rear their heads again. And it's almost like a reminder, oh, there has been some issues in the past. And so when we think about genetics, when it comes to blood flow in our bodies in general, but especially our brains, it all comes back to heart health. And so although vascular dementia isn't necessarily genetic, heart conditions can be that can lead to those blood flow changes. So high cholesterol, high blood pressure, those are the things that can be genetic that can contribute to vascular dementia. So we say what's good for the heart is good for the brain, and for people who have those kind of um, you know vascular dementia, for example, that is in your family, those are the kind of things you want to think about for your future, is staying
Okay.
heart healthy. Yeah.
Going back to your grandma, was she diagnosed with dementia before you got into this field or
Mhm.
after?
After.
Interesting.
So, and diagnosed with dementia honestly is like very generous for what happened with her, because from a rural small town in Kentucky, and she's only been seen by a primary care physician. So she's never seen a neurologist. She's never had the neuropsychologist, like 4-hour testing that are often required to get like a specific diagnosis of dementia. And that's why I'm so empathetic towards families who just do not choose to undergo significant testing to determine like what kind of dementia, and like pursue clinical trials and all of that, because for my grandmother, um, the closest neurologist is about 2 hours away from our hometown, and like 9-month waiting periods. And it practically didn't make sense for her and for her wishes. And also, it wouldn't change treatment for her. So we know she has dementia. I think eventually they put it on her diagnosis list from our family's request, basically. But she started showing signs after I started kind of specializing in this area. And so even myself, who does this professionally, I still would be around her and be like, oh, well, she's just not paying attention. That's why she can't remember. Or like, yeah, well, the phone and the remote kind of look similar. That's why she used the remote to call someone, like even though I know better than most people on this earth, like I still found myself being in denial about someone I
Mhm.
love. And so once again, I have a lot of empathy for families who find themselves deep into the process of dementia before even starting to question things or realizing maybe this is a problem.
Yeah.
But once it became clear, it was really helpful for me to have the knowledge that I did to help her through it, to help my family walk through it, to know some of the things that needed to be done. And so much inspiration as far as like, I mean, understanding what families are dealing with. And like my family still struggled so much with acceptance, and then also just knowing how to navigate this, even with someone like me who has lots of experience. And so all the more for families who have never seen this, have never, you know, uttered the word dementia, to know how to navigate it. It's so complicated.
Seriously, and so nuanced too.
Nobody plans for this, especially financially. This is not in the plans. This is not and no one understands how expensive care is. Even if you try to care at home, like it's expensive. Supplies are expensive. And so, yeah, that's incredibly challenging for a lot of family members. And I have a question for you that I was thinking, and this probably the reason I ask is because I'm wondering if this is a generational thing. But when you started creating content and talking about your mom having dementia on social media, was that like a big consideration that you like sat with? Was this like an ethical dilemma for you, or was it just like a natural part of sharing your life?
Um, so I don't really share a whole lot of my life, like, until now, I guess. Having a background in acting, like, I was mainly focused on Hollywood stuff. And so like I didn't get into content really at all until last year. And what I did was I started sharing stuff about like my own mental health diagnosis, which in 2022 was borderline personality disorder and bipolar disorder. But I did it in such a way where I started even like doing skits about it. So I wasn't really even, I was still kind of acting like, you know, in a way I
Mhm.
was not really sharing my life or anything like that. So when I got the call, which really was from my dad, I was in Hollywood. I had just gone to my first Oscars party. Like, I had just shot my first national commercial with a celebrity for Lay's for social media. So I was like on this high and like literally like the next day, like got this call of like, you need to go figure this shit out. In my head, I was like, there's no way I'm going to be able to get through this if I don't turn it into something.
Mhm.
Meaning, like, in my life, I'm an artist kind of out of necessity. Like, I have to turn my pain into something or else I'll just be very destructive. I think the next video I posted, I asked my little sister, like, hey, do you want to be in a video with me? Like, we're going to go get mom's diagnosis. When I posted that video with my little sister in it, that's the first one that like really went viral. And then I was like, which was like 500,000 people maybe or something.
Mhm.
And that's when I was like, huh, that's crazy. And then I started to get scared. So this is where I got scared because I was like, okay, it was like 5 people seeing it or 5,000.
Yes.
Now it's like 500,000. Then
A
I was like,
lot of
oh,
opinions and a lot of yeah.
I was like, I'm screwed. Like, and then I realized I accidentally posted Facebook, like, the Facebook thing linked. And I was like,
Mhm.
no, the older people are on Facebook. Like, they're gonna think I'm making fun of her, or what is her family gonna say? They haven't even heard from her in probably 3 years. So like they don't even know this. So I was then kind of like getting scared.
Mhm.
Felt a little bit guilty. And then I think I really had that thought of like, well, just because I feel guilty doesn't mean kind of what you were saying, like, doesn't mean it's wrong because I feel like some people are getting value out of this. I feel like my mom actually likes it.
Mm.
So yeah, I had that moment of like, what am I doing?
Yeah.
But then I started to get one of the things was I saw your page and you were like, I'm destigmatizing people talking about dementia or whatever. And I was like, oh, sick. So people are out there like doing it
Mhm.
too.
Mhm.
So seeing your profile was really great for me. And the next thing that kind of happened was like some of my mom's family members like would text me and be like, thank you for posting those videos. Like this is a really important conversation. And I was like, whoa. Like then
Yeah.
I felt like, okay, even if some people are gonna be hating it, I have some people's blessing, you know?
Mhm.
And so and for me, I don't know, it seemed like she just has so much fun with it. It seems like it makes it a thing for her,
Mhm.
as in like, "Hey, we're not just going to the doctor, like, we're gonna make a whole show about going to the doctor," like and, to me, like, she likes it because again, she worked behind the camera at Channel 5 News. She kinda likes the camera and she likes,
Yeah.
like, creating stuff. She's very creative. She never really got to be after, that job. I called her a couple days ago and I was like, "Mom, we got 1,000,000 views in 30 days." I was like, "Mom." And she's like, "Oh my god, that's great. Congratulations." Like, yeah, it's cool to, like it's really cool to do something with her too. Because, like I said, she was really, like, the only person who kept, like, pushing me to
Yeah.
go out into the world and do whatever I wanted to do, and, like and of course, now she regrets it because she's like, "I wish you were just at home with me," but she knows. She
Yeah.
knows that we're kind of we should be doing our own thing and our passion, so
Yeah, and it feels like something that started as the story of, like, your mom doesn't see your success. It's turned into, like, she's part of it too. Like, like, she's with
that
you. Like, you've helped her become this, like, social media success, whatever that looks like, but, I love it. I love that you have a background in, like, speaking about mental health because I think that's a huge part of the conversation that is now being like, the conversation about dementia is benefiting from. And the reason I asked you the question to begin with is, like, so much of my conversations with the generation of people in their 50s and 60s who have parents who are in their 80s and 90s, they are still so much like, "Oh my gosh, my mom has," like, they don't wanna say it. They're, like, so embarrassed, so ashamed. It's like, "Don't tell people. No one needs to know." Like, "Oh my gosh, what are people gonna think?" But then I feel like it's, like, our generation that's like, "I have anxiety, I have depression, I have bipolar, and my mom has dementia." Like, this is just life. And I think
Yes.
it's there's a tide that's turning quite a bit, because the only people in your shoes, like caregivers who people who are actively part of caring for someone with dementia and showing the process online, like, it is people of our generation. I don't know how old you are, but I'm assuming we're in the same generation.
31, yeah.
Yeah. I'm 36. So it's like it's just this, like, this wave of people who are talking about dementia in a way that's not full of shame and
Yeah.
embarrassment. It's just like, here it is. And I think the fact that our generation has become so comfortable and forward in talking about mental health, like,
Mm,
that part of us is benefiting the conversation about dementia, because so many people are avoiding going to the doctor, avoiding getting a diagnosis. They just want to ignore the fact that it's happening altogether because they don't want that word to be attached to them.
yeah.
And so what you're doing is so important, because also these beginning parts, like the diagnosis and like someone talking about going into care, and it not just being this like tragedy, like last resort kind of like, oh my gosh, I have like mom's gonna live in a care community, but it's like, this is what we're choosing.
Yeah.
And there's really good ones, and they have really good food, and it's uncomfortable at times, but like, this is just life. And
Yeah.
we need to see that more. We need to hear it more. And so I know that it might not be your daily content. You might not turn into a dementia influencer, but
Well, I
whatever
really I
kind,
use it every day when I'm there, I try
yeah,
to. Uh,
whatever, like, you can add to the conversation and just show it in, like you mentioned earlier, that someone says, like, that you're doing it in, like, a positive way. That's what people say about my content, which, like, I named it "Be Light" for that reason, is, like, let's
mm,
stop talking about dementia like it's just dark and scary, and it can be
mm.
that. But also, there's a lot of humor. There's a lot of, like, you know, like, positivity and parts of people that are coming out that people have hidden for so long, that they're, like, less concerned about what people think of them, and they're more authentic, and, there's
What?
just so much. There's so much more.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say is, like, we could all like, tell my friends, like, who have been watching the videos now, I'm like, "We could all learn something from my mom because she now has no filter, and she's exactly what you said, more herself than she ever was before." And not only that, but it's made me really think about, like, people in general. Because when you say, like, for example, you have to go into their reality, and
Mhm.
it's their reality, it's like, aren't we all like that, actually? It's just some are a little bit more extreme than others, right?
Or
And
we're all just faking it.
yeah.
You
No,
know,
but
like, we're all just trying to meet each other in this, like, fake version of what we think life is.
well, yeah, but we're
Yeah.
also like, if somebody has an opinion about something that's not ours, like, we say they're wrong, but, like, you should say, "Oh, that's their reality," or whatever, and,
Mhm.
like, that's okay, we can still coexist, but,
Mhm.
like, we don't have to agree on everything, and usually when we disagree, we fight instead of, like, finding a deeper connection.
Yeah.
And so, like, there's just certain things that I feel like in studying, like, I'm grateful I get to be close to her when I get to, like, study her brain, and it gives me, like, so much more awareness of just humanity too.
Mhm.
And, yeah, it's very interesting, like, I'm enjoying it, like, I'm enjoying studying her brain and watching like, seeing the way she really can connect things now, and I was
Mhm.
telling someone, I was like, "Dude, like, I'm glad I get to sit here with her all day because I just watched her have a whole day of experiences, and then she comes home, and the story she tells" because, like, I'm, from a creative person's
Yeah.
perspective, she tells the story that has nothing to do with what it really was, but she's pulled a tiny piece from every single thing we did
Mhm.
today and told a new story, and that's what creativity is making new connections, and I'm like,
Yeah.
I've never seen anyone more creative when it comes to that. So
Yeah.
maybe, yes, she is losing her mind, but there's something very, like, interesting about the other superpowers she
Yeah.
now has, you know?
Yeah. It's like her brain is still working, but it's working with less information, but it's still creating. Like, it's
Yeah.
creating sense from what is left.
Yes.
And, yeah, I find it so refreshing to be around people with dementia. I found that, like, early in my career, I wouldn't say I necessarily have social anxiety, but I'm certainly an introvert in the fact that, like, it's ironic, I'm a, like, content creator that I'm in front of the camera all the time, but I really do get uncomfortable around people I don't know and, like, a lot of people at once. But when you're with someone with dementia, there's this benefit of, like, you never have to wonder what they think about you. Like, you never have to worry that there's this, like, underlying, like, dislike. If they don't like you, they'll tell you. Like,
Yeah.
they'll be like, "Your pants are too tight and you have too much blush on," It's like,
Yeah.
"Okay." Like, it's so refreshing to just, like, be so authentic to hear that, but then also there's, like, this being in the moment that it
Mhm.
forces you to have, like, of,
Definitely.
like, I can't rely on what I've done for this person in the past. I can't rely on the fact that they know that I'm gonna be here there in the future. I have to just fully be present with them right now in this moment, and there's so little of my life that I feel like I am that way.
Mm.
I have to be so in tuned with, like, their facial expressions and their body language, and I'm looking at the environment in a different way. I remember sitting with my grandma, and she was like her eyes were darting, and she was kind of getting, like, antsy, and I noticed that there was a ceiling fan on and, like, there were lights recessed into the ceiling, but then there was a fan hanging down under it, and so it was casting these shadows all around the room,
Oh, yeah.
and, like, I wouldn't have noticed necessarily, but it's like I just, like, vroom, just, like, kind of, like, melted into this awareness of, like, "Oh, there are shadows being cast everywhere." Like, that's probably kinda scary for her. She doesn't know what that is, and there's just these moments that I'm like, I wouldn't have seen the world in this way had I not been sitting with someone with dementia and been mindful of their world. And I'm so
Yes.
thankful for that. I'm really thankful for the presence that it gives me.
It's a good practice, especially if you can be present with somebody else. I think that's, like, what intimacy is, but we
Mhm.
have a hard time doing that, because of kind of what you're saying, all those underlying things that we're trying to be politically correct or
Mhm.
socially not awkward or whatever. It's
Yeah.
like we're trying to be so many different things that we can't just be normal or be ourselves, and,
Yeah, and there's so much grace being with someone that you know is gonna forget everything that just happened in the next 10 minutes. It's like, if I make them mad or if I say something weird or, have food in my
that's
teeth,
true. They
they're not gonna
literally
remember it.
know. Yeah. And it's funny because, like, that's another thing we can learn from, like, shouldn't we all just be able to, like, let it go? Like, I mean, not, like, just bypass everything, but just
Sure.
realize that, like, I mean, when you study, like, meditation or prayer or any of these things, the highest form of consciousness is just purely presence, which
Mm.
you don't remember anything, you just are here. And so it's kind of I don't know, it's kind of beautiful in a way. I really I do enjoy it. It's so good to connect with you and hear your passion for it too, and especially that you didn't always want to it wasn't your, like, first choice, but you kind of grew into this, right? And why? Like, that's super cool that you landed on this and you have so much, like, heart for these people with dementia.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I think dementia enters our lives unexpectedly for, like, every person, whether it is personally or professionally a lot of times, and, I think you certainly have to be a kind of person that's willing to let go, to be present, and I'm sure your acting experiences also kinda lends, some techniques for you to kinda just go along with the flow and, like,
Uh,
to to
Props.
improvise at times. Yeah.
It is, yeah. It's so weird. Tell me if you had this experience. I feel like when she gets mad even, she has this awareness over she's mad. So
Mm,
even when we're, like, arguing, it didn't used to be like
mm,
this. We used to be really arguing, and now we're, like, play arguing because we, like I don't know, there's something, like, in between now that we're like, "Yeah, you can still get mad at me, but this is, like, also a joke at the same
mm.
time." I don't
Yeah.
know why or whatever, but
Yeah, I think, like, the physiological effects of our emotions still lives within eh everywhere else outside of their brain. So when they're mad, they still feel that that chest tightness, or like the workup that you get when you're mad, but then they lose the like facts and the content behind why they were mad. And so it's this energy of like, I'm supposed to be mad, but don't
Ooh.
really know why, you know?
And that's fascinating too, because a lot of times we get mad, but like until we attach it to a thought, that's where we like spiral or take it all the way to
Mm-hmm.
like a blowout fight. Where it's like if we just would have not attached it to a thought, we could have just simply been mad for a second, and then that would pass in like 2 or 3 minutes because
Mm-hmm.
emotions don't take that long to cycle through you.
And
So it's
joy
like,
works the same way. Like if we stimulate joy in them, like they're going to carry that even though they don't remember the moment. They're going
yeah.
to still have that, like, you know, the rosiness to their cheeks and the relaxedness to their body. And it's like, so with memory loss, a lot of times people are like, well, does it matter if I visit? Does it matter if I'm there? If they don't even remember, like their body remembers and they
Mm,
carry it with them. Like, and so being present absolutely is important, but then like they physiologically take along the feelings
yep.
of how you left them for a long time. And so, yeah, I think, you know, from this conversation, I'm going to take with me just like this joy of conversation, like of getting to know you, of meeting you, and like connecting on so many different areas. Uh, Even if I were to completely forget the facts of the conversation, luckily it's recorded so we can listen later. But uh,
Yeah.
it's true for all of us, you know?
Yes, definitely. And same here. I feel like this conversation has filled me up definitely. And yeah, I'm so glad that we connected on this topic, and to find you like in this moment in my life is so impactful to me. And yeah, like I said, your content did make me continue on, and it's cool to have you kind of cheering me and others on who
Hmm.
are just like, this is the real truth of what's going on, and like
Hmm.
we don't have to be afraid of that, right?
Yeah, there's nothing to be embarrassed about. She
Mm.
did nothing to deserve it, and we did nothing to deserve this new responsibility. We're just taking it one day at a time. We're all trying to figure it out.
Thank you guys for joining us for another episode. That was awesome. It's so great to hear and meet and feel somebody in this space who is just loving on everybody with dementia. No stigma when she talks about it, and she's educating other people, not only caregivers, but young people, people online all over the world. Go follow Adria Thompson. Her Instagram is BeLightCare, BeLightHTCare. She's a freaking light in this world. If you or someone you know is struggling with dementia or Alzheimer's or anything brain health related, Adria is going to be a great resource. Also, I'll be vlogging about my own journey with my family and caretaking our mom. I love you guys. I hope everything is going good in your world. Thank you again for coming. That was Adria Thompson. I'm your host, Megan Tully, and this has been Is There More? Thanks for listening.